Thank you for making time to chat. It's a pleasure. Your name is one of those that's sort of been on my radar right from the start. Mute Witness and Werewolf in Paris are two films that I absolutely adored when I was a teenager. So good to be chatting.
Yeah, that's good to speak to you too.
I should have said I really enjoy your movie 9 Miles Down as well. I've got that on Blu-ray back here somewhere.
Right, that was originally set in Australia.
Yeah, it was never a DeRoche script originally, I think.
Indeed, it was. It was. And then I went down for some brainstorming, working on the script with him. I flew down to Australia and he took me to Broken Hill. And it was all one journey from Frankfurt to Bangkok
Wow.
to Sydney, change plane, flying back to getting smaller and smaller planes each time. And then we were on this helicopter at the end. And I think this is actually the same journey. And it was like over 24 hours. And I was in a daze looking kangaroos jumping around. And Everett was saying, yeah, this is the landscape. But it turned out to be more practical to shoot it in Europe. And we shot the desert scenes in Australia.
Oh,
In Tunisia, sorry.
yeah, you got a good trip out of it though. I guess it's a
We
shame you were
changed the
delusional.
Aborigine bit into the Arab Tuareg.
Fascinating, fascinating. We could talk about that as well. Actually, let's talk about the Piper. It's been a long
Sure.
time between drinks for you. What lured you back?
Um, well, I made a 16-part TV series in between, which took up 3 to 4 years of my life.
Hmm.
So that if you look on IMDb, you'll probably see that down in the TV section.
Hmm.
So it looks as though I've had a gap. No, but I've been very busy. And I directed all of those 16 episodes, and it was a spy thriller based on true events between 93 and 2003. So it included the invasion of Iraq and
Hmm.
search for weapons of mass destruction and 9/11. And so not a small subject.
How did you find directing television? Like, having made films previously.
Yeah, the biggest difference is you just got to get more screen time in per day. I mean, so it's
Mm.
between 8 and 10 minutes of screen time you have to shoot. Whereas on movies like American Werewolf, for example, we had only 1.5 minutes of screen time. So it's
Mm.
just a 74-day shoot. And on when you're doing a TV series, you just have to get a lot of material through. So you can't do as many takes of something. So if something's not perfect, and it's a lower budget, so you're rushing around. We had 250 speaking parts, and I was shooting in Arabic, English, and Russian. So we had
Wow.
actors in those three different languages, sometimes speaking those languages, and so I had translators. But and أعرف شوية عربية, which means I speak a little Arabic because I was born in Beirut in Lebanon,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and yeah, and I shot my first movie, Mute Witness, in Russia. So я могу тоже по-русски говорить. Um,
Yeah, bilingual, multilingual.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
And before we jump into the Piper, just on that, like, do you prefer television or film? Like, are they apples and oranges?
I do prefer movies, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad to hear it too. I'm glad to hear it too. As you
yeah,
can see, I'm a
yeah.
movie lover, so lots
Oh
of.
yeah, you've got the time to sort of get details right and for the
Mhm.
special effects and stuff instead of sort of rushing through. It's too much like a production line TV series.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So the movie is, based on the lore of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and that is in and of itself steeped in history. And I'm amazed it hasn't really been adapted into a horror film before, at least that I'm aware of. What was the appeal to you with this story?
I think it was the idea that people get punished for something they've done wrong, even if the piper is somebody who feels they have to punish parents who've gotten away from a crime,
Hmm.
and that the most severe punishment is taking away their children rather than punishing them directly, because a parent will suffer more
Hmm.
if something happens to their child. And so this idea that the child is being uh, punished for the deeds of the parent is something which it helps this parent-child relationship. And when she thinks, "What, I have to suffer for your sins," and then she looks for her own form of rescue, and it strains that relationship, and it gives a nice sort of parent-child interaction thing going, and it's also this idea of vindictiveness, and it's a good premise to get people on the edge of their seats. But it's I mean it was aimed and designed as a teen movie. It's because there's a romance in there as well. So you've
Hmm.
got the evil powers from the past, and you've got the good powers, and this, and she's trying to get out of what she's told is an impossible situation. And yeah, does she get out of it or not? You have to wait
Yeah,
and see.
let you put some rats on screen too, which that always creeps people out, which is
Yes, and
great.
Elizabeth Hurley had a phobia of rats, and she said, and I thought she was joking at first. She said, "Yeah, I love the script, and but I don't want to do it if there are any rats in it." And I said, "Oh, so you have read the script?" She said, "Yeah, no, I mean real rats. It's okay, CG and all that." So the closest she got was like a stuffed rat, was just as a reference prop, because she
Yeah,
does actually pick one up by the
out of the
tail.
out of the water tank.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
suddenly bursts into life. And of course, that the moment it burst into life, it was CG, but we had to match it with the
Yes.
puppet rat. And at first, we thought she wouldn't even do hold that, and we would have to make the entire sequence going across, and that would have been uh, 15, $20,000 more just
Oh
to
my God.
make the fake rat for up until it starts to wriggle. And luckily, she braved it and together the take with the stuffed rat.
I think the most disturbing part of that scene is the fact they drank the water first.
Yeah,
That really
she
grossed me out.
seems strange. Yeah, and she's saying that to the daughter, "Oh, don't be such a fusspot," and all that. And then she, wow.
I loved it. Love that. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. And the Pied Piper story, again, it's a very sinister story, like all good folklore. Did you do a deep dive into the history, to sort of flesh this story out, or sort of was it based?
Actually, my
Yeah,
brother did more of that deep dive than I did because,
right.
you see this book, The Piper,
Mm,
this thick book, which she gets from the library from
yep.
this mysterious librarian. And I wanted everything, when she's flipping through or anybody's flipping through, the text would be, if in case you got a freeze frame and you looked at it, there would be something authentic there. And he went sort of like really to town on that and researched everything about the Piper and stuff I didn't know. So he did the research. I read his research. I thought, oh, that's actually, we can include some of these bits, and
Mm,
the idea of some of the idea of the children disappearing. I mean, it sort of came later
yeah.
in history, so it wasn't. It's evolved, like many sort of old scripts. One could say the Bible is we got stuck together from different stories from different
Yep.
times, different authors, and then it becomes a um, so that myth or the story that we have now that we know is children get taught as a moral tale in school.
Yep.
It evolved. It wasn't like that from day one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your movie inspired me to do a little bit of a deep dive into it, and I was just fascinated more with the Black Plague stuff, and the symbolism with that, and using it as a way to sort of scare the kids and all. Yeah, just a fascinating lore, and I'm so glad that you've taken it and put it onto the screen like this. Um, you did mention the Aussie connection with Nine Miles Down. This one has the Aussie connection as well because Duncan Kennedy's name is on it. I assume it's the same Duncan Kennedy that is Australian that did Deep Blue Sea and Bait. Were,
Correct.
were you
Yeah.
actual like direct co-writers, or was this a script that he had written that you've built upon? How did that work?
It was a script which had been developed. They'd bought an Australian company had bought the rights uh, off Duncan, and I got around through a German co-producer they were talking to. It had been offered to me,
Hmm.
and then I read it, and they said, we think it needs. It was an out and out straight shock 'em up horror piece, and
Hmm.
they said that we wanted it a bit more for a teen audience, and not just out and out horror. And I introduced then the Luca character and Auntie Aisha and a lot of these other characters. into the story. I added the idea of it being a sort of scary romance. I mean,
Hmm.
like Twilight or something that also works. It's like a date movie. The girls want to go because they're interested in the love story. The guys want to go because they want to be frighten their girl and be able to protect them or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so I like that sort of bit of a cross genre mix. I do like mixing up genres a little bit with comedy and horror and with American Wolf, for example, that's all
Mm.
tongue in cheek. So yeah, that's uh,
Yeah,
where my
awesome.
interest came from. So yeah, so I was offered that. Then I made some changes to the script, and the
Yep.
Australians actually didn't like those changes so much. So I once their option expired with Duncan and the rights were available, I
Mm.
just bought them, uh, 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 made a deal with Duncan
Yep.
myself, and then did my rewrite. And then made
Awesome.
it there and found finance. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
brilliant. What about influences? When you're making any particular film, we'll obviously use this one as the direct reference. Do you look at other films and sort of, take some inspiration from them? Is there any kind of other artistic expressions, whether it be actual art or music that, you channel into your films just to conjure an entire look and atmosphere?
I don't think, okay, I've got to do this movie now. Let's look at other films in this. I don't do it that way, but
Yep.
obviously everyone is or can't avoid being influenced by
Yeah.
stuff they've seen in the past and where they've got goosebumps or where they like a certain atmosphere,
Yeah.
and then they pursue that, and you go off on tangents yourself and make your own thing out of that.
Sure.
But there are, there are other movies that have said, "Oh, that works. And that's looks like a good avenue to pursue." And then you do, but it's often just the flavor or the mood or the kind of suspense or laugh or
Mm.
mix of laughs and scares and
Sure.
yeah that inspires. Yeah.
I get a different answer from everybody whenever I ask that question. It's always a different answer. So I'm always fascinated. Some people are just like, absolutely, here's, I borrowed from this and I borrowed from that. And then other people are like, well, no, I didn't want to do that. So it's always fascinating to me. Uh,
Oh, some are nods to or tributes to,
yeah.
where it's close enough. And I say, oh, I love the like Landis's Nightmare Within a Nightmare, where
Oh, yep.
and
Yep.
did that quote exact mechanism
Hmm.
of where you think you're in a dream sequence, or in reality, and then the dream sequence is actually within another dream sequence, and then you wake back out of that. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that is a great fright sequence, that one. And this movie is clearly quite a departure for Liz Hurley after what, a couple of years, maybe a decade of rom-coms, primarily. How
Mhm.
did she become involved with the movie and was she enthusiastic about it right from the start?
She was, but as I say, she said she's got a phobia with rats,
Yeah.
and then I said, well, if only, if as long as they're all CG, then she would do it. But she liked the mother-daughter relationship because she's a mother herself, and
Yep.
albeit with a son, um, who's also becoming a filmmaker himself,
Right.
and she was, realizing she can't do the same kind of roles earlier, and now was looking sort of she can be the mother, and so she's
Mhm.
realistically looking at her. And I saw an opportunity there to cast myself as a husband, so I could boast to my mates, I've got married to Elizabeth Hurley, by the way. So what? No, oh, only in a movie. Yes, well, that's probably better, isn't it? Yeah.
You're the envy of many, I can tell you that when I was watching I was thinking lucky bastard.
Well, of course, my golfing partner said, "So, and how was the love scene?" I said, "There isn't a love scene. We run over a couple of twins." And I said, "Oh, yes, yeah, we got a hit and run.
Yeah.
She does the hit, I do the run, and we're both guilty." Oh, haven't given a spoiler now, have I? But
Oh, I'll bleep it. I'll bleep
uh,
it. Oh my God. And the music. The music is also, a very effective component of the movie. And if I'm not mistaken, forgive me if I am, this is your first time scoring one of your films. Would that be right?
for a full feature. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I when
Yeah.
I was doing commercials, I did do jingles myself. So
Right.
in the 90s, I composed a lot of jingles. I actually sang a song on an Old Spice commercial, and people were calling into the station, and I had saying, "Where can we buy the record?" And the record company approached me and said, "Let's make a record," because I'd only done the jingle, and I developed that into a full length. It was 17 years after I'd originally composed this, and I'd started to try this song and didn't quite finish it, but it was. And then 17 years later, I did this commercial. I thought, well, actually, we can use that for the jingle because, I hadn't done the full length song, but it was enough for a jingle, and then made it into a song 17 years later, and it was released in Germany, and I had a record contract. So, and all my friends were saying, "What? Without even trying, the record company comes to you. We've been trying with our band for years to get a contract." It's like, well,
I mean, the song's
that
about
wasn't
Old
my
Spice,
first.
but you know.
That wasn't my first either, because I also did a jingle and met a guy called Ralph Siegel in Germany, who had produced music with Tammy Stronach for Neverending Story, and she sang that, and I was with him in the green room, and he said, I asked what he's doing. Oh, I'm doing a Christmas carols old and new with Bavarian football team. And we're still needing one more original Christmas carol. And I just sort of blurted out, well, I composed a Christmas carol this morning. I said, did you? And he says, I believe in serendipity. I want to hear it now. And in actual fact, I had been messing about on a friend's synthesizer, and I'd done, a few sound ideas. And then I played that to him and said, right, we're recording it, and I got a contract, and then was a 72-piece orchestra with Bavarian football team singing. Suddenly found myself doing this Christmas Carol. That was my first record. So again, it was. And maybe the stars are telling me I should be a musician or a composer or something, because it's like crazy that
Oh my God, I
that
have
keeps
no
on
idea.
falling into my lap,
That's
and other things. So you have to really struggle for, you know.
awesome. So when you're scoring a film like this, what comes first? Like the seed of the music or the movie itself, and then you create the music
The
to it?
the jingle, the Piper's tune, and actually I did that just in half an hour on my iPad with GarageBand,
Yeah,
and
right.
I put together that and yeah, I did that theme with whom bass going through it and ding
Brilliant.
ling 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 on the top, and that style was inspired from the music from Suspiria.
I was gonna
Uh,
say it's got a real
yeah,
goblin kind of feel to it.
exactly. The Red Goblin, and it's got the
Yeah,
bass going through, and then ding, ling, 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 sort of harmless kind of children's sound, and then and
yeah,
those the high pitch and the low pitch, and then having a na 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 na, sort of almost like a harmless nursery rhyme tune that
yeah.
is then creepy. So yeah, it started with that, and then we, I brought Wilbert Hirsch on board because I'd already been composing for a month, but I was busy with lots of other stuff, so I needed help. So we came in, and we didn't work on the same pieces together. I did about 40% of the music. He did the other 60,
Mhm.
and we worked on separate takes, so we weren't working on the same take. So I did most of the scary stuff and
Yep.
all the Piper themed stuff, and he did the romantic stuff, the other stuff in
Hmm.
between. So I appreciated him coming on board. And Wilbert, of course, I've worked with on Mute Witness and on American Wolf.
I love it.
So
You've
yeah.
probably answered my next question. I was going to ask you what's your favorite part of the entire filmmaking process, and maybe now it's scoring. But what would you say?
Well, I did enjoy that. Well, I enjoy each part for their own separate reasons,
Mm,
and that's why I wouldn't want to only edit, only direct, only compose music. I like the fact that I can or only write. I like the idea that when you're writing, you've got your solitude. You can do it anywhere. You just need the peace and quiet, and you can get into the zone, and you go writing, and there are a few people around you as possible. And then the other extreme, shooting a movie, you've got everybody around you, you've got all these questions being asked, and it's chaos, and it's completely different. I wouldn't want to do that all the time. So have it be able by doing these different jobs, but also with the shooting, you were against time restraints. You've only got this location for a certain amount of time. The sun's setting. We've got to get this shot in before then because we're moving to a new location the next day. So you're having to make compromises all the time. You're in a rush. So it's stressed more about what afterwards, when it's all in the can, you're thinking, why was I bothered to be stressed? Because it worked out in the end anyway.
Yeah.
But it's you don't know that in advance, and if you weren't stressed, you might not have got it all in the can. It's always a shame it can't be more enjoyable, that process, because there's a lot of pressure to get everything you need. And then with the editing, you have all this time because you can try something out. If it doesn't work, you can try something else out and you try. So I love that, having the time, and you start with something. You're always depressed after you get all the rushes or the dailies. And that first assembly is always like, right, okay, now it can only get better from here. And you're tightening and tuning and making it, and watching something just get better all the time from its raw state is also enjoyable, and not having to be terribly rushed for that either. So there's something to like and something to not like so much in each of those phases, but doing all three, of course. And then the new thing was the composing, and I really did enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's great to hear, and I hope moving forward you do some more because the music was
Yeah.
great.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. So as I come to an end here, I always like to end on some personal questions just about your own tastes and whatnot. And I'm wondering, just in your downtime, what kind of films do you watch when you are just at home on the couch looking for something?
Ooh. I like to keep up to date with what it is that's popular and what audience, because I consider that a mixture of keeping on the pulse of
Sure.
how trends are doing, and my own entertainment. So it's hard to always watch um, a a movie without putting yourself in the filmmaking process and imagining behind it, and so I can't really be a complete pure observer. I'm sure many filmmakers can't do that because they're always going to think, "Oh, I wonder how they did that," or "I wonder if well, that's interesting," or recognizing, that's a plant. Obviously, we're going to get the resolution to that earlier because something that has been planted early on, which gets answered later, and you can always recognize those in terms of how a story is structured and the expectations. And sometimes you get surprised, and because the filmmakers know, they're going to expect that, and maybe it's already a bit of a cliche that's going to turn up. So no, I like discovering new things and realizing you can't always use the same formula all the time. You have to sort of explore um, uh, new areas or new combinations. And as I say, I like to mix genres as well, which also
Yeah.
uh, is against sort of expectations. I don't like putting things into. The problem is in distribution, you always get the distributors wanting to. The guys working on the marketing, for them, it's
Mm,
easy. They have that box. Oh, it's horror, or oh, this is a rom-com, or this is,
yeah.
and it almost as though you're making it difficult for them. And if you're if you can't put it in a box, and I mean, the audiences don't think that. Oh, I only want to see this formula. Actually, they
Correct.
complain that it's too predictable often when in that case. So
Yes, I'm always talking about that on the podcast about how just the marketing departments and quite often the distributors just don't have their finger on that pulse at all. They're stuck in 20 years ago and not really keeping up with new trends and things like that. But that's great to hear that you're on top of it. I feel like there's a lot of like the crop of new young filmmakers at the moment are really sort of reinventing the wheel and sort of breathing new life into just genre filmmaking stuff like Talk to Me and all the A24 stuff. It's a really good time for genre films. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so last question for you. When you were a young lad, what was the movie that really lit the fire, lit the bug, and made you want to pursue filmmaking?
Ooh, there wasn't one, and my tastes have always been diverse and eclectic, like my taste in food. I wouldn't want to eat sushi every day, but I like sushi. But Yeah, they ranged from Some Like It Hot, Terminator, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Mary Poppins, or
My
yeah,
favorite film of all time, Mary Poppins.
when I was a
Love it.
kid, Sound of Music. When I was a
Yeah.
child, it was like, wow, you can be transported to, and I just like the fact that you come out and you're in a daze and you've been taken somewhere, you've been taken to another place, you've been taken into other people's emotions. You
Mm.
can imagine yourself putting yourself in other people's shoes in certain situations. And that's why I like also movies which are related to true stories, because then you think, wow, you can imagine what somebody in real life actually had to go through, or how they experienced something. So yeah, I'm afraid I can't put
That's
one.
okay.
I know you were trying to get me to say one particular
No,
film.
I mean I was, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter because that's a good answer because you were just you were, I guess, whisked away, as a child into the whole world of cinema and film, and I guess in a lot of ways I was as well. It's hard to pinpoint one film that lit my passion, but
Except that I didn't come from a movie making background. My father made 16 millimeter films of us as kids, and I always loved it. And putting up the screen in the living room and just seeing us on there. We had our own home cinema. I thought, well, what's to stop us doing that?
mm,
And then I started with Super 8 films. Then I made animated films, which were shown on BBC screen test competitions for young people. So I had,
mhm.
and my work was being televised as a teenager already in these junior competitions. So that the thirst and the excitement for um, uh, it's and you have to watch it with an audience. And when you've got your movie there and you've got thousands of people around watching it, and you can feel the energy in the room, where and how certain things might be sagging, where other things work, where you get the
Mm.
laughs at the right moment or unexpected moments. And so that's always a valuable thing. And then you can get goosebumps thinking, wow, transport yourself back to that moment when you had that first idea, and now it's on the screen and people are laughing at it the way you were hoping they were like a year and a half ago. It's like it takes such a convoluted route to get into people's heads at the end of the day. Telepathy would be faster. Um,
Oh, I can't help but feel like there's a lot more that I'd love to chat with you about, and maybe we can circle back
and my answers are
sometime.
getting too long, aren't they? So
No,
it's
no,
going to
no, no. This is perfect.
be
But like the
okay.
focus is, has been on the Piper. But I would love to have another conversation with you later on down the track, just about your career in general, because those earlier ones, Mute Witness particularly, absolute fan, and would love to pick your brain about that. But thank you for taking this
Yeah, well, I'm
time.
re-releasing it. I'm re-releasing it this year, new 4K version.
Yes, and is there a commentary on that, please?
Yes, there is. I talk away through it, and sometimes I didn't like on some when I see director commentaries, they just keep the original soundtrack low all the way through, and I did it this time, and then edited my own soundtrack and left gaps so that certain moments which had scares or
Mm.
dramatic moments or essential dialogue, there would be little holes for that, and they dipped in and out of that soundtrack, so it doesn't ruin the viewing experience. And
Well, excellent. The guys who are not with me right now, the guys I host my podcast with, work in distribution, and we are all very excited about that one. So maybe we can circle back and talk about that, and maybe as a
yeah,
collective have a group chat. That'd be great. But thank you for
yeah, because I
taking
think
this time.
Arrow are distributing it in the US. Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
Right.
Well, thank you, and I hope we can do that. And good luck with this
You've done
one.
your research.
Yeah, I have. Well, mate, I meant it when I said that I'm a fan of yours. Like, your
Oh,
stuff in the early days really has informed a lot of what I've been doing over the years.
well, that's great. It's great to hear.
Well, take care of yourself, and let's hope we can
Yeah,
chat again.
indeed.
We're in heaven. It's our new home.
When you freshen up, I'll show you around your new school.
It's a prison.
Look, Amy, the Pied Piper.
I miss my friends. Not when it has a chance to make new ones.
Quiet. There will be consequences. 3, 2. Welcome to our school, Mrs.
we actually come here?
I chose the best option for us. Let's leave it at that, okay?
Nighty night.
Amy? What have you done?
You've been marked as a medium for someone else's penance. You will see things others don't. Rats are guilt. Insects red.
Has anyone seen Cassandra?
There she is.
Cassie said that she knew she was going to die because of something bad her parents did.
You've seen him.
Who?
5 or 6 out those who have gotten away with crime.
Oh.
Punish them by taking away their children.
When all fingers have bled, she'll be fully under the spell. You pay the piper.
Luca?
How big a sacrifice are you willing to make?
I want to confess.
I found the stash.
You don't know what you're messing with.